All right, Shalom. First, I'd like to start by saying all praise to Yahweh, by Hashem Abishai, by Hashem Kakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles that we will, and salutations to the brothers that's doing the truth and sincerity. Now, this is just an update on what's going on with Moab. It says the racist angle behind China coronavirus epidemic, right? And now, they saying it's a pandemic, you know, and Moab starting to understand to a certain degree, not really, but starting to get a feel for how it feels to be discriminated against, et cetera, et cetera. How your whole nation can be looked down upon, man. And it's only the beginning, because the more of the story of everything that's going on. Not just for Moab, but everything that's going on in the world is Israel is taking back over, and they're going into captivity. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video and then just implement some scriptures.
The World Health Organization says it doesn't recommend trade and travel restrictions in the wake of the outbreak, but that hasn't stopped at least.
And that's why the virus is spreading. That's just Satan, because I'm
22 countries from imposing some form of travel restrictions on people coming from China. They include the United States, Israel, the Philippines, Australia, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, New Zealand, and North Korea, Indonesia, and Iraq, which have issued temporary travel bans on people traveling or transiting from the mainland. China's neighbors like Russia, Mongolia and Nepal are closing their borders and checkpoints, while others are introducing stricter controls. Meanwhile, Singapore, Vietnam, Russia, Sri Lanka.
That's one way to spread the virus, not closing your borders and still letting people in, because you don't know how fast the virus. At one point in time, they didn't know how the virus was working, all the above, and how fast it was traveling and where it was at. But it came all over here to the U.S., But eventually, they did. China did shut itself down, close everything down and whatnot. So they're not letting nobody out and in.
Bangladesh, Kazakhstan, and Mozambique have temporarily stopped issuing visas to Chinese nationals. Nearly 40 airlines from across the world have stopped or partially suspended operations to and.
And this is just part of the agenda of helping push the race riots, because even though everything, everybody showing racism, and that shows how they play on words and everything, even though that they pushing out like racism toward Moab or the Chinese, is more than Chinese that's over there in China leaving and from that place, et cetera, et cetera. It's just that everybody's targeting Chinese and stuff. So the way they wording it is helping push these race riots, which is part of prophecy. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this precept because it is inevitable. This is Isaiah chapter 19, verse 2. It says, let me see, is this the one I want? Yeah. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And we know that kingdom was part of World War III. But that's the race riots right there, because everybody in America is taking after the Egyptian customs and the philosophies, even Moabites. Let me see. I'm going to just jump to the point on this one. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 15, verse 19. It says, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. And that's going to happen when the race riots kick off. It's not being televised. Like, at one point in time, they showed it every now and again, like little racial skirmishes and everything, they mention it, but they're not showing anything like how they did in London, where everybody was segregated behind a specific event that happened and whatnot. But yeah, this is just them helping promote the race riots.
From China. Something else appears to be spreading fast to communities, big and small, due to ignorance and misinformation. Andrew Chappelle has more.
The coronavirus outbreak has led to complaints about a rise in anti-Chinese sentiment around the world. In France, for example, the hashtag #IamNotAvirus is being used to share stories of bullying in schoolyards and city streets and of hostile treatment by the media. A regional newspaper has had to apologize for this headline that used the phrase yellow alerts, while scenes like this one you're about to see here are widespread of people appearing to cover their face just because they're sitting next to someone who's Asian.
J'étais dans le métro. Je m'assieds sur la.
I was in the metro going to work and I sat down on the seat. Then the person sitting next to me moved over by a few centimetres. If he could have moved a few metres, he would have, but at least it was just a few centimetres. He then covered his mouth with a scarf. I was shocked and speechless. I didn't know why and I didn't want to fan the flames, so I didn't say anything, but I really wanted to tell him that what he'd done wasn't okay. It's the first time that's happened to me.
En fait, on a observé. We've seen the awakening of a latent racism, which we already knew was there, but which is now completely out in the open, with words and behavior that are disrespectful, impolite, or even clearly racist.
And media outlets across Europe and Australia are facing criticism for cartoons and headlines that reinforce old anti-Asian stereotypes, as are businesses like this nail salon in Vietnam, which has banned their Chinese customers. Now, these stories naturally make people feel very uncomfortable and unwelcome in their own communities. Brian Levin is the director of the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University, San Bernardino. He says that ignorance and misinformation about the coronavirus has a big part to play.
Prejudice works with regard to its depth. So some people might just be honestly fearful but ignorant, and we're in a very tribal and polarized time where the information flow sometimes is stovepiped, where people are talking to other conspiracists or ignorant people. And what we've learned is that if people feel fear, we have three parts of prejudice. One is the cognitive, how we experience and perceive something. The other is how emotionally we feel about it, and then how do we behaviorally respond to it. And unfortunately, when there's a surfeit of ignorance, that will be like a funnel that will allow these other negative stereotypes to take root. That's why it's so important for government agencies and officials to be ahead of the wave and explain as best as they can about the risks. Indeed, in the United States, we have thousands upon thousands of people die from the traditional flu every year. So we have to put it in some kind of perspective when we're reporting these kinds of things.
All right, so ultimately that's what Moab get. And I'm going to just bring out these last couple precepts. This is happening to Moab because of what they did to Israel. This Psalm chapter 83 verse 1, a song of psalms of Asaph. Keep not thou silent, O Most High, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Most High. And the Lord has been showing himself lately through all these events and prophecies. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones, right? And that's all the nations have done that. But I'm going to just jump to Moab. Moab took part in keeping us down, keeping us asleep, right along with these Edomite devils, so on and so forth. This is verse 6. It said the tabernacles of Edom, which is Esau, the white man, and the Ishmaelites, some Arabs. That's why Jake and them think they Muslims. Of Moab, which is the Chinese. So they had a hand in doing this, keeping us in this captivity, not only in America, around the world, and keeping us asleep, and feeding us stuff that we're not supposed to eat, et cetera, man. And the Hagarenes, the Africans, man. So what's happening is the Lord is turning them curses upon them. And like I said, like the scriptures say, the end result is a lot of these Moabites are going to be put to death. And those that survive are going into captivity. And still be getting put to death because it's a righteous thing with the Most High to recompense tribulation upon them that trouble you. These Moabites have been troubling us, man. They just as racist as these devils, these Edomites. Yeah, I'm not going to drag it out. I'm just end it there. That being said, all praise to Yahweh Shema Shai. Double honors to the elders and apostles that rule well. And salutations to the brothers that's doing the truth and sincerity. Shalom.